Thank you for tuning in to the Into the Classroom series produced by Mental Health California, sponsored by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative. Hi, I'm Michael P. Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well, a service of Mental Health California. We're excited here at Brother Be Well because we get to bring you information about a vast array of services and programs, folks in the community that are doing fantastic work. And that's an understatement when it comes to Omni Youth programs. I want to introduce you to a new friend of mine. Her name is Cynthia Mumford. Cynthia, hey, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, just great, Michael. I'm so happy to be on the show.
I am so excited to talk to you. I've been waiting to talk to you for several days. You got this incredible series of programs, really, and I can't wait to dig into them with you. If you're ready to go, let's get started.
Let's get started. Absolutely.
You put a beautiful deck together for us, so let's just go one by one, taking a look at this first one. My question here for you: strengthening families, rather, developing youth leaders, and empowering communities. This might be a bit of a rhetorical question, Cynthia. Why? Why did you want to do this? Why was it important for you that you address those three pillars as you put this program together?
Well, it takes everything. You imagine if you're trying to inform a youth to keep them away from something that is bombarding them from every imaginable area. But if you just talk to the youth and not the family, their parents, their siblings, if you're not talking and you're not addressing what's happening in the community around them, then and you don't give them the hope and the skills and the awareness that they are fully capable and empowered to have control over their life, their choices, their outcomes, you're not going to be effective just working on one little part at a time. So we have to take the larger picture approach.
I really
Bring
appreciate
everybody to the table, as they say.
I appreciate the perspective. It takes a village, right, to get it all
Yes.
done. There's another point on that first side that I want to ask you about, and some people won't know what the term means. I know what it means, but could you describe transitional age youth? What's that mean?
Yes, transitional age youth is youth between 18 and 24 years old. It used to exclusively refer to foster youth aging out of the system on their 18th birthday. But now the term is being used more broadly for any youth, foster or any youth in any circumstances, like the early years of college, if they go to college, or youth between 18 to 24.
You know, one of the reasons I love my job is just when I think I know something, I realize I don't. I did not know that the term had been broadened beyond foster youth aging out of foster care. So thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Let's take a look at that next slide. I've got my note says it's a roots slide. Anything you want to touch on there?
Oh, yes. So something that a lot of people are like, why are you working with youth, or why are you working with 13-year-olds? There's so many people, so many adults, so many college students or older youth who are older adults who are addicted to drugs. Well, the reason we start and work almost exclusively on youth prevention is because 90% of addictions have roots in the teen years. If you think about even most adults who are struggling with addiction, they first started using when they were under 18. Some start as young as 9 years old. And so we now consider drug addiction a childhood disease. So that's where that root comes from, that we want to start at the beginning. Coming down the road is too late. If you had a leak, if you had a pipe break, would you be down the hall trying to, scoop up the water, or would you want to plug that hole? That's what we're trying to do. with
That's a
prevention.
great it's a great analogy, and it's also a sobering fact. Addiction is a childhood disease. I think a lot of us
Yes.
that are past childhood are going to reflect on that long after we check out this video. So that's a sobering fact. Let's take a look at that next slide. You addressed alcohol. Tell us why you focus on alcohol.
Okay, so we focus on three major large categories of drugs, not exclusively, but alcohol is one of them. And the reason we focus on alcohol is, first of all, there is easy accessibility, a lot of social acceptance of it, at least by adults. And here's the real kicker: youth who drink, 90% of alcohol consumed by youth under 21 in the United States is in the form of binge drinking. So when parents say, "Oh, I want to have the parties at my house so that when my if my child's drinking, they're safe, I can keep an eye on them, or I want them to learn how to drink before they go out in the world when they get older." But youth are not sitting around the way adults do when they get together at parties and they're sipping a glass of wine or having a cocktail or drinking a beer. They are binge drinking, and binge drinking means, let's say, drinking for girls, females, 2 drinks within an hour. For boys, it's 3 drinks within an hour, and that's considered binge drinking. And some drink faster than that. We've seen the people putting a hose into their mouth from a beer keg, for instance. And that's how youth drink. They're not drinking slowly. They're drinking to a precipitous point of alcohol poisoning.
And I bet we're going to get into dosages in just a second, but we're talking about portions right now. You said 2 to 3 drinks per hour. Depending on the size of that cup, they could be getting 2 to 3 cups or 2 or 3
Servings.
servings in just
Yes,
one cup. And if you're at a party and you slam a couple of those, that could be 4 to 6 servings in 1 hour, and that's where
absolutely.
alcohol poisoning can start to happen. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Let's take a look at, we gave you a little tease. Let's take a look at that marijuana slide. This is one of the ones I've been dying to get to
Yeah.
deconstruct because there's a lot of data here. I've got to tell you, Cynthia, that the images of the two caramels there, same size, they look very similar, very different dosages there. Can you talk about this slide overall and why youth and caregivers need to be particularly concerned?
Okay. So the image in the middle of the slide on the bottom, we all know what a normal Werther's type soft, chewy caramel looks like. So imagine you go into a dispensary and they're selling these marijuanas in a little pouch or whatever, and they're pretty small. Would you assume automatically that that is one dose? The problem is there is no regulation at the moment on dosage per size of product. So if you go into store A, that might be one quote dose. And in loosely put, one dose is approximately 10 milligrams of THC. THC is the portion of the marijuana plant that causes the euphoria and the high. However, you could go into a different dispensary, buy the same sized caramel, and it could have 10 portions in it, 3 portions in it. You wouldn't know unless you're going to take the time to be aware and look at the tiniest of print. The important information on these packages is unfortunately in like a size 4 font. And when we look at normal documents, they're usually a size 12. So we're talking, you've got to have good ears and you've got eyes, and you've got to really pay attention. So it's so much easier to overdose, and there is such a thing as marijuana poisoning. Just like there's alcohol poisoning, there's fentanyl poisoning, there is marijuana poisoning, and it is miserable. But I want to go through the slide first, just to make sure we get to it. And if we have time, we'll address the poisoning that is called scromiting, and there are even worse states than that. But if I wanted to point out the upper left slide that says THC levels, as I said, THC is the part that causes the high in marijuana. So back in the hippie days, or the Woodstock era, 1960 to 1970, the THC levels is 1 to 3%. Then around 1980 to 2000, the THC levels increased from 2 to 8% because now they're kind of like, ooh, which plants are stronger? I'm gonna plant those, and those will be our new products. But starting in 2018 or so, when medical marijuana was being accepted in many states, they started to bring in chemists and botanists and started manipulating the plants. And the THC level in a normal plant now averages 14 14 to 18. And honestly, that slide is a little old because I think it only goes to 2020. But now in 2024, they've gone as high as 36%. Oh, it does say that. Sorry. 36% THC in the average plant. Now compare that to 1 to 3% in the hippie era to 36%. Now that's in a plant form that would be perhaps smoked in a joint, which is a marijuana cigarette or a pipe. But if you're going to extract the THC out of the plant and put it into concentrates that you put into edibles or put into dabs or vapes, now the THC level can be as high as 99%. So the equivalent is, imagine you have alcohol, you have a shot of alcohol, right? One shot is, in the little shot glasses, or one beer, one glass of wine, whatever. Let's call one serving of alcohol. Back in the day, it was 1 to 3 shots, is now equal to 99 shots for the same, let's say it's only a shot glass, but it's now the equivalent of 99 drinks in there, not just one. That's what has happened. And even people who, when they were younger, like they have youth now, they're like, well, I kind of did it in my day. Yeah, it was much weaker even than the parents of today had it, much less the grandparents of today. And so this is something that people are not aware of. And this is where youth run into trouble, is overdosing, because they're not aware of how high a dose can be in these products. And this goes for street products as well as dispensary products.
Wow. And it also, and we're going to need to move on a little bit, but I've got this question. It also, I would think, for parents and caregivers, we might not realize that it's as serious an issue, because we may remember in our youth when we used a marijuana product that was quite a bit less potent than what young people are using today.
That's exactly what's happening. The adults and parents of today don't realize how much stronger it is.
Wow. Let's take a look at, and again, Cynthia, we talked earlier, we could talk all day and half the night about some of these topics, but let's move on so we get to everything. Why do you guys focus on opioids? What do you want to tell us about?
Well, obviously, opioids is a very serious problem now. And the thing about opioids, but let's talk, it's mostly fentanyl that's happening because it's been coming over the border. I'm going to have to keep my answers shorter. I won't go into all the history. But what's happening is most youth know and adults know, stay away from fentanyl. The problem is that fentanyl is showing up in a lot of other drugs that are not supposed to have fentanyl in it, like Adderall, Percocet, other mental health medicines, pain medicine. And people are getting it from their friends. They're getting it from online pharmacies. And a lot of the youth are getting it directly through social media. Youth have ads and messages that pop up that their parents are never going to have pop up on their feed. They will never get the same ads as their teenagers are. And these ads say, I'm in your area. I could be at your house in 5 minutes. Send me your address. I'm selling this, that, and the other. And a lot of youth are buying these pills or getting them from friends who got them from somewhere else, but they are laced with Percocet. Fentanyl. 97% of pills purchased by youth on Snapchat are fake and contain varying levels of fentanyl, but they look identical. It's too bad I didn't get a picture. I'm sorry I didn't think of it, to put a picture of a fake and a real pill. You cannot tell. I've been in audiences with medical personnel and they couldn't tell the difference. It's absolutely impeccable. And so a youth might be like, oh, I'm having pain for my being in a sports team at high school, and their friend says, here, take this Percocet. It's really good for pain. And they're like, where'd you get it? Oh, I got it from a kid at school. And it was laced. And I have heard from so many parents, their child died from their first Percocet because it had fentanyl in it. And nobody would have known, not the friend who gave it to it, not the friend at the school. And it's a really dangerous world out there. And I've heard from kids who are being approached at malls by people, and it's there's no smell, no taste, and you can't visually see it. And the quantity that is enough to kill you is the smaller than a piece of rice. It's closer to a grain of sand. Deadly. Everybody, doesn't matter how big and buff you are, it's that deadly.
It's that deadly. It's that addictive. Even if you live through that first dosage, it's quite deadly. We have our master addictions counselor with Brother Be Well, Roland Williams, taught our youth over the summer exactly what you just said. That just one time with a fentanyl laced pill, and you could end your life. Your life might be cut far too short. And it doesn't, unlike the drugs of our youth, it doesn't take. It only takes that one pill that's laced with fentanyl, and it can take you out. So
Yes.
really appreciate you being so candid with that information.
And Roland Williams is the best.
He's amazing. I didn't know you did. He's really amazing and quite impactful. This is a genius at what he does.
Yes.
Let's take a look at your slide, youth services slide. I've got a couple of questions here. You talk about a few documentaries. I'm wondering, talk about the docs, but please tell us if they're open to the public. And then if there's one in particular I want to ask you about. But why don't you talk about your documentaries?
Yeah, we tend to do these services when we're asked to do them. We don't normally like schedule them and then advertise them. If we get asked by anybody, it could be a group of parents meeting in their home. It could be a faith organization. It could be a classroom. It could be a club. We will then provide these services because that's what we do. We'll come to you and do whatever you ask for that has to do with youth drug prevention. And they are open to the public. Absolutely. All of our services are 100% free. And the documentary screenings are very powerful. We do them in schools and at churches. And sometimes we ask the school counselors to be nearby because they touch the kids so deeply. What would you like me to focus on off this slide? Because there is a lot.
There's a lot. I'll let you pick one, but I want to ask
Okay.
you about that Fatal Vision exhibit.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
the Fatal Vision is very fun. That one, do you remember the old days of the alcohol goggles and you walk on this path? Well, this is a version of that, but it simulates what it's like, how your brain gets gets confused by as if you're under the influence of marijuana.
Wow.
And it's a driving path that you're supposedly driving along with a handheld device while you're wearing the goggles. And it's a really important exhibit. First of all, it's fun as all get out, absolutely a load of fun. So everybody's having a good time. But most teenagers polled say, I believe I drive better when I'm under the influence of marijuana. And more youth are driving while impaired than they used to under alcohol. And they're driving friends around. And so it's an issue nobody's talking about because, like alcohol, remember we've all heard of the people who are really drunk and we're trying to take their keys away, and they're like, "I'm not drunk, I could do it," and you're looking at them like, "Oh, you're not really okay," but they feel inside as if they are sober. And when you say, "I drive better," that's the confusion that happens to your brain because anybody else looking at them or just watching how they drive. In fact, police officers, interestingly, this surprised me, under the influence of marijuana, we always think, people are more mellow and laid back. Well, when they get in a car, a lot of times paranoia sets in, especially from the higher dose THC instills paranoia very quickly compared to the lower doses.
Wow.
And so people get in the car and they're driving 100 miles an hour because they believe somebody is chasing them behind them. And the police have reported those are the worst crashes. And that is, again, an unexpected fact about it. So we're happy to have this exhibit to say, you're not driving well, and please don't get in the car with your best friend, in spite of how much they're reassuring you.
What's behind that? I'm curious before we move on, Cynthia, what's behind youth driving under the influence of marijuana in much higher numbers than alcohol? That surprises me a little.
Well, I think youth know not to drive under the influence of alcohol. We've already got that message really clear. They already know that, so they don't give it. But we don't haven't got that message across clearly with
Yeah.
marijuana yet. I think
Wow.
that's all it is.
Wow.
And like I said, they don't feel it.
Well, let's get that message out, and you're helping us get that message out. For you, don't drive impaired. It doesn't matter what's impairing you, but don't drive while you're impaired. Let's take a look at that parent services slide. I've mentioned parents and caregivers a little bit. The one that caught my eye was the hidden in plain sight. But I'd like you to just talk in general about your parent services, and if you could touch on that one a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, we have a ton of parent services, but and we cover things like how to drug proof your youth, signs your youth might be using drugs, how to talk to your youth, your teens about drugs, because this is very uncomfortable and very awkward and very tricky to navigate. And we give fantastic real world tips that are just like, oh, and I model it for them with examples and role playing, what to do if your teen's going to a party, how to prep them for how to like resist peer pressure, what to be aware of, like we were talking about these overdosing issues. But the hidden in plain sight is an exhibit of things that all are items that youth use to hide drugs that look like normal everyday objects, like a pen, a magic marker, lip balm. It can look like an Apple Watch that is telling time, but inside it's a scale for measuring out drugs. We have water bottles Dasani water bottles. You can unscrew the top. You can drink the water that's in it, but in the center and the bottom is clear. You open it and there's a stash for drugs. And we have dozens of items, clothing items. The strings on sweatshirts is an actual pipe. One is for putting the substance in, and the other one is to smoke out of, and you would never know. You think they're just wearing a hoodie. So we have this exhibit where parents, and we bring it to schools for the teacher trainings as well, so they're recognizing, because we hear from so many teachers that the kids are just kind of sitting in class, and they're like, what are they doing? And then when they see our sweatshirts, also hidden compartments in sneakers, Adidas sneakers. I mean, it's just unbelievable the places that we keep. It's so hard to keep up with it.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's fascinating to me that manufacturers go through that much trouble in terms of design and then production
yeah.
to con our kids into getting addicted to drugs. Really.
And are kids legally supposed to be using these drugs? No. What are these manufacturers doing? What are they doing? What about even the manufactured edibles? Why
Yeah.
are they making them look just like Doritos, just like gummy bears, just like Snickers? The
Yeah.
wrapper is just one letter off, but the rest of its design is identical, and it's
Yeah.
appealing to children intentionally. And stores often put it next to the candy rack. They're
Amazing.
marketing to youth, even though it's not legal. They spend more money traditionally, alcohol industry as well, spend more money marketing to underage youth because the first product you use, you will become a lifetime loyal user and an addict. So they spend more than on adult advertising.
Wow. Wow. We've got just a few more minutes, Cynthia, and I'm sorry we're limited as to time, but let's take a look at your professional services slide. And I've got a particular question for you. Walk us through those. But my question for you is, you mentioned cultural awareness.
Oh,
We haven't
yes.
touched on that term yet, and I certainly know what that is and why it's important. But can you talk about why it's important that these services are delivered in a culturally affirming way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Sacramento County is one of the most culturally diverse cities in the entire country. And imagine someone recently coming over from a war-torn country, and you're talking to them like an everyday, raised in America child. You have to be culturally aware. And our agency in particular specializes in working with incredibly diverse cultures. We do every translation. We will spend years developing partnerships with different cultural organizations and groups to ensure we even understand that culture well enough before we'll even put together services for them, because it just turns them off and it becomes meaningless, and it becomes disheartening for those if you don't do that. So the cultural awareness is very important, and it's not just immigrant culture, it's different ethnicity culture, different gender culture, things like that. So we put a lot of work into that. And our professional services are geared towards building the community capacity of having the people who are out in the community be as well informed and skilled and trained and have the best programs at their fingertips that they're certified in to offer to the people that they work with. So we
Really,
offer free certification to youth professionals and other adults, even if they're not involved with an organization, they want to go out and help people. We'll certify them in these organizations, in these programs for free to run programs with youth or parents.
before we touch on your final couple of slides, I want to just thank you on behalf of everyone. You're mentioning all of these free services, free trainings, free certifications, free screenings. Hats off to you for going out and get the funding for that. I happen to know I've got a background in fund development. The money has to come from somewhere. So hats off to you and your team for securing the funding so that these services can be provided for free to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have to thank Sacramento County DHS, Behavioral Health Services, alcohol, substance use prevention, they changed their name recently, substance use prevention and treatment services. They are the ones behind all this funding so that because one of the mandates was get rid of all the barriers, get it to the people who need it, bring it to them, get rid of every barrier, and paying for something is one of the biggest barriers, as is transportation, as is people you can relate to, language.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's take a look before we wrap up your community services slide. Just something I wanted to just touch on, if we could. 52 events every year. That's an event a week. That's a lot of work, and you touch on over 3,600 people every year. So again, hats off to you. Do you want to speak briefly about that particular slide before we wrap
It's just an incredible honor and blessing, and I couldn't do it without. It's all about the team. I'm just the one who they check in with, and they just get out there and give their heart and soul to it. And everybody loves the parents, the youth, and our partners. And anybody who's interested in any of these services, just get in touch with us. We are used to personalizing. If somebody says we need this, then the very next sentence is, what can we do to get it to you? And so don't be shy. Go to our website, get our information to get in touch with us, and let's start working together.
I think your final slide might give a little contact information with regard to that. And I know we got some banners. There's your name again, Cynthia Mumford, Executive Director of Omni Youth Programs. That's a website there and your email address. Cynthia, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Michael. I enjoyed this so much. Thank you for getting the word out on such an important subject. I really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. We're going to do everything we can. And look for me. I'm going to pop into one of those community programs, one or two of them. I saw quite a few I'd be interested in. So I think you're going to see me around.
That'd be great, Michael. All right. And thank you to your team.
You take care. We'll talk to you soon. And I want to thank you for watching this particular webinar. We've been highlighting Omni Youth programs, and we hope you got something out of that. If you did and you want to learn a little bit more, you got the website a minute ago. And here's that website again, omniyouth.net. That's www.omniyouth.net. So check them all out on that website. We need to tell you about a couple of other websites that are of interest to you. First of all, we want to thank Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative. They helped us to be able to bring this program and many, many others to you. So we want to thank them. Their website, if you want to read a little bit more about them, is bluesky.blueshieldca.com. That's bluesky.blueshieldca.com. Another website, if you can handle it, is our own, mentalhealthca.org. That's Mental Health California site. And I mentioned Brother Be Well as a service of Mental Health California. That website and Brother Be Well is specifically for boys and men of color, and that's at brotherbewell.com. You can read all about that and check out videos similar to this one, podcast, print pieces. Check it all out at brotherbewell.com. I want to thank you again. My name is Michael P. Coleman. I'm content director for Brother Be Well. It's been a pleasure of mine to be a host for you tonight, to be able to bring Omni Youth programs to you. I want to thank you again and ask you to do two quick things for me before you take off. Take great, great, great care of yourself, and we try to help you do that here. And then the second thing is, once you get that down or you start to get it down, take great care of somebody else. Do that for me if you will. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. God bless.